Hey guys, this is National Master Kevin Yang back at it with another video. So I did promise to hold that simul on Friday. I was expecting all the comers to come, and we got a pretty good turnout, right? We got our usuals, and just to let you know, I will not be holding a simul this coming Friday. So just a quick reminder on that. But let's get to it, right? This one is against Chessleonmaster. We ventured into a Sicilian. Knight f3, e6. This is the con Sicilian, so it's very flexible. We might want to play d5. We might want to hold off and just get the knights out. We might want to play a6 and b5, right? So there are many ways to approach this. But after this happens, black has many moves again. Knight f6, knight c6, a6, bishop to c5. It's a lot of different ways to do it. I chose knight f6, and knight c3 happened. So, quick trivia, if e5 happens, what does black do? Well, black plays queen to a5 check, right? Bam, bam, picks up the pawn in one move. So white can't do that. Knight c3, and here there's still so many moves, right? Bishop to b4, but I decided knight to c6. Let's play the supposedly Taimana variation, or the classical variation, whatever you call it. Bishop to e3. Now, I'm not sure what the moves are here, but maybe queen d3 looks okay. Maybe a3 looks okay to stop bishop to b4. f3 looks okay. There are a lot of moves, but our friend Chessleonmaster played bishop to e3. Protect d4, but now I might run into some problems. I played bishop to b4, and I said, well, okay, now your knight's pinned. I'm going to take on e4, and I'm going to try it out, right? And here, f3, bishop d3, I might have something after that, right? I might have d5. I might have e5. So after bishop d3, I considered my options. I looked at e5, knight f5, d5, right? Well, not d5 particularly, because there's the g7 pawn that's hanging, so I'd have to castle. And after castles, take, and d5. And here, things are working out for me, right? But let's see. In the game, I played d5, and I was like, well, I got a break in the center, right? There's got to be some pressure here. And after f3, I said, well, I could castle, I could do nothing, and I would be all right. But do I want to do that? Or do I want to just do nothing? Right? So I decided, let's take action. This move looks pretty good. e5. Like I said, castling was not bad. Knight to e5 doesn't look like a bad move. But we'll see. So e5 is played. Knight takes c6. Pawn takes c6. And now a3. So now this is interesting because I have d4 in sight, right? The two pieces are going to be forked. So what do, right? I played bishop a5. I said I'm going to keep the pressure on here so that if you play bishop d2, well, then I keep my pressure, okay? Right? After b4, I'm just going to go bishop to b6 and keep my center, right? Because I'm proud of it. So, bishop to a5, b4. Now, I'm thinking, okay, what do? Right? Bishop to b6. Because at this point, I was again thinking, what happens if I just play d4, right? I love the taste of these guys. There's bishop g5, and all of a sudden, if I choose to take here, and white takes here, right? Then, I really like my bishop, right? Because my bishop's much more valuable than this guy. At least that's what's in my eyes, right? When we look at the piece, this knight, well, it can move, but the bishop, if it goes back, maybe we can play a5, and maybe we can really get back at this pawn later. So that's how I sort of determine, this piece is more valuable. So what did I do instead? I decided to trade. And I traded in part because, well, if takes, I can take two ways. With queen, come in here, or with pawn. And both are great. I took a while to decide which one to take with. I sort of looked at it and I said, okay, if take, castles, and castles. And I was like, well, this is a pretty good position. And then I looked at, okay, queen takes, take, and if I take here, and bishop b5, I was planning king to f8. And I was thinking, well, I have some checks, I have some steals, and I can maybe make some interesting play. So that's what I was thinking. So I said, okay, if you take, I'll check first, because I'm going to get my queen in, and maybe if you play queen to e2, I'm going to play queen to d4. I'm going to get a little tricky with these guys, right? King to d2. And I was like, wow, that is bold. What did I do? I said, game on. Knight takes d5. Let's put some more pressure on this knight, right? And if you play here, simple. I'm just going to castle. I'm going to get f5 ready. I'm going to put some pressure in the center, and hopefully I'll be better. But instead, knight takes d5, pawn takes d5, and it's starting to look drawish. I have to admit, it's starting to look drawish. Queen to e3, and I said, let's trade, right? But I was optimistic about this endgame. Although it is equal material, I'm not that bad off. Rook to c8, rook to b8. It looks scary at first, right? But this rook, it can't easily get over here. Because if the bishop moves over, well, there's d4 and there's bishop c4. So maybe we can sort of try to distract the protection of these pawns, right? So there's a bit tricks involved. Rook to b1, I'm putting more pressure on the pawns now. g4. Now I'm not sure what g4 does, right? I kind of feel like g4 detracts away from the purpose of trying to defend these pawns. So what I would do is I would play the move bishop to f1 to say, okay, if bishop to d7 happens, well, then I could play either rook to b3, rook to c3, or rook to a3. So it really depends. But what I think bishop f1 does is that if d4 happens, well, then rook to a3, and maybe there might be a6 and b6. So I think that is what Chessleonmaster should have focused on. But it's hard to say, right? But now after h4, I play h6, and this was a pivotal moment, right? I considered whether bishop takes b5 was worth it, because I looked at this and I said, well, I can no longer play g6 because of h5. The bishop is not trapped, right? Because after king g7, bishop takes pawn. So I was like, no, is it worth it? No, I'm not going to give up this pawn on this side. I'm going to play h6. Now another move I could have thought about was the move d4. And this is equally justified, right? Rook to e1, bishop takes. And then what happens after here, right? I had the move rook to h8. So this was another thing I thought about. I just didn't know if it go through all the way. I didn't know because I was thinking concretely in my mind, I have to take this guy. But was it worth it? Well, I don't know. I was just thinking a little bit too much about this. So h4 and I said h6. I just want to avoid all the complications on this side, right? I don't want this h file to open. So after h5 I said thank you for the present. Bishop g6 and a6. This is a really interesting distracting move because if bishop takes a6, rook takes b8. So I can't do that. So I played rook to c8. And unfortunately, our friend Chessleonmaster ran out of time here. So let's look at the game again, right? I think from the opening, I got a pretty good advantage with this move d5. I kind of felt like bishop to e3 wasn't the best move there. It had to be, either bishop to e2, had to be a3, stopping bishop to b4, queen to d3. But here I got d5, I got e5, I got very comfortable, right? And here I should have taken with the pawn. It just was a little bit better. It was hard to evaluate, but a personal note for myself, right? But after this, I got a decent position. Queen to e2, queen to d4. I got some pressure in the center, right? And my endgame technique was okay. But g4 might have been, not much purpose there, right? So after g4, bishop d7, I would have suggested once again, oh, this is not the game. g4, where was it? Bishop d7 and h4. Now I think, remember at this point, it was time to play bishop f1 or bishop e2. It was time to get the rook over, right? Because you want to try to logistically advance the pawns. So that was the goal. Even here, I should have played bishop takes b5 and stopped worrying because I had rook h8. So I guess it wasn't enough calculation on my end. I just got a little bit lazy, and sometimes can't get a little bit lazy, right? And even though this position isn't exactly winning for me, I have a good advantage, right? I have some pressure here. I'm threatening to take the pawn here, so you never know, right? But this was one of those I gradually got enough play from a pretty good endgame that I had, right? From this point on, I sort of knew that, okay, I was going to have a pretty decent endgame if I put enough pressure on the pawns, if I got bishop to d7, if I put on my big boy pants and I played d4, it would have been okay, right? And it turned out to be a pretty good endgame. But it wasn't a flawless game. It had definitely its own flaws, right? We didn't take on b6 with a pawn, so I could have still improved, but it was a pretty good game. So um, that's all for now, but hope you tune in for other game analyses, and National Master Kevin Yang will continue to be providing these videos. So stay tuned, and I'll see you next time.